And the fraud is mind-boggling. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's not even millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation.
It began as a normal day in Philadelphia, a city full of rhythm, noise, and life. But it would soon become the center of a mystery that would haunt everyone who heard it. Cotta Scott was young, bright, and full of dreams. She worked at a local nursing home, loved her family deeply, and had a smile that made people feel seen. No one who knew her could ever imagine that she would suddenly vanish without a trace. Yet, one October morning, that's exactly what happened. At first, her friends thought maybe she just needed a break. Maybe she went off somewhere to clear her head. But as hours turned into days, and days into weeks, it became painfully clear that something was terribly wrong. Cotta wasn't the kind of woman to disappear quietly. She was known for her laughter, her open heart, and her fierce independence. For her to go missing meant something dark had happened. The police launched a full investigation, but every lead seemed to end in frustration. Flyers went up across neighborhoods. Family members made desperate pleas on social media. Volunteers searched parks, abandoned buildings, and alleyways. People hoped for the best, but feared the worst. Then came a call that would change everything. An anonymous tip came through, urging police to search an old, abandoned school on the edge of town, H. Lewis Middle School. Officers had already searched that building once before, but found nothing. This time, they were told to check the wooded area behind it. And that's where they made the devastating discovery: human remains buried in a shallow grave. DNA testing would later confirm what everyone feared: the remains belonged to Cotta Scott. Her family's nightmare had become real. The medical examiner ruled her death a homicide, but that was only the beginning. The question wasn't just how Cotta died, it was why, and who was responsible. Police soon turned their attention to a name that kept surfacing: Kian King. He was 21 years old, known around the city, and already had a history with law enforcement. Investigators quickly connected dots that painted a chilling picture. Cell phone records showed that Kian's phone had pinged in the same area as Cotta's on the night she vanished. Surveillance cameras caught a man who looked like Kian moving something large and heavy into a secluded area near the woods. Kian and Cotta had a complicated relationship. They weren't strangers. They had known each other, talked often, and according to messages later recovered by police, they were still in contact the very day she disappeared. Some of those texts were playful, even flirtatious. But one stood out. Cotta had written, "You should kidnap me again," and Kian responded, "Better be ready." It was the kind of inside joke that might seem harmless, until the context became deadly serious. Hours after that exchange, Cotta was gone. The discovery of her remains confirmed everyone's fears, but what came next only deepened the mystery. Kian King eventually turned himself in. He admitted to kidnapping Cotta, but insisted he had nothing to do with her death. Still, prosecutors charged him with arson, conspiracy, and vehicle theft, but not with the more serious charge many expected. That missing charge left the public confused. Why wasn't he being charged for the killing? Was there something investigators weren't saying? The answer, as it turned out, was yes. According to sources close to the investigation, the police believed that Kian didn't act alone. Someone else may have helped him. And that someone, according to anonymous tips, was Gabby, a young woman who had once been close to both Cotta and Kian. Whispers spread quickly. People online began to connect the dots, claiming Gabby had given Kian Cotta's address. Screenshots began circulating. A video surfaced showing Gabby wearing Kian's hoodie, fueling speculation that she had been involved all along. But the story didn't end there. Text messages allegedly between Gabby's mother and friends suggested Gabby had a criminal past of her own, one that overlapped with Kian's. She had reportedly been arrested for similar crimes in the past, and was known to spend time with him even when others warned her not to. Police, for their part, have remained quiet, cautious, deliberate, and unwilling to move too fast. They know one wrong charge could destroy the entire case. But their silence only makes the public more restless. People want answers. They want justice. Kata's loved ones continue to speak out, demanding accountability, not just for Kian, but for anyone who may have played a role in what happened. The community is angry. They've seen too many cases like this before, young Black women who disappear, who don't get the same attention, who end up as headlines instead of survivors. This can't just be another forgotten name. One activist said during a vigil, Kata deserves more than that. She deserves truth. She deserves justice. And somewhere in the shadows of that truth, one question lingers. What really happened the night Kata Scott disappeared?
What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing.
He continued.
Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Casa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families.
As the shock of Kata Scott's discovery rippled through Philadelphia, people started asking questions, the kind that didn't have easy answers. Why was she alone that night? How did she end up in that abandoned area? And most importantly, why hadn't police charged Kian King with her death yet, even though every clue seemed to lead back to him? Behind the scenes, detectives were quietly piecing together a complex story, one tangled in love, jealousy, and betrayal. According to people close to Kata, her relationship with Kian had always been rocky. They had broken up more than once, but somehow they always found their way back to each other. Friends said Kata saw the good in people, even when they didn't deserve it. She believed everyone could change, even Kian. But others said he had a darkness in him that made people uneasy. Kian was known to have a short temper and a history of violence. In fact, he was already awaiting trial for another case involving a woman who claimed he had kidnapped her months earlier. Despite that, he had managed to post bail and walk free. That single decision to let him out would soon come under national scrutiny. The police's hesitation to file the most serious charge led to speculation that they were building something bigger. They suspected there was more to the story, and the rumors about Gabby were becoming impossible to ignore. At first, Gabby seemed like a peripheral figure, just another person in the orbit of Kata and Kian's troubled relationship. But online detectives, social media commentators, and even local podcasters started uncovering connections that went far deeper. Photos showed Gabby and Kata smiling together at parties. Videos hinted that Gabby had spent time with Kian long after he and Kata split up. Then came the video, a short clip circulating online showing Gabby wearing one of Kian's distinctive hoodies. It wasn't proof of anything, but in the court of public opinion, it was enough to ignite suspicion. People began to wonder, was Gabby just a bystander, or did she help plan what happened to Kata? One anonymous Twitter thread claimed Gabby had been the one who told Kian where Kata was that night. She gave up her friend's location. The post read, "She knew what kind of man he was, and she still helped him." The post went viral, with thousands demanding that Gabby be arrested. Gabby, however, denied everything. In a live video that's since been deleted, she claimed she had nothing to do with the crime and was being framed by people who didn't know the truth. "I didn't tell him anything," she said tearfully. "I didn't even know what he planned to do." But even her own words raised eyebrows. She admitted that she knew Kian had been asking questions about Kata in the days before her disappearance. She also admitted to communicating with him around the same time. To many, that was enough to make her look complicit, or at least suspicious. Adding fuel to the fire, leaked text messages allegedly from Gabby's own mother painted a troubling picture. In one exchange, her mother expressed fear that Gabby was mixed up in something bad again. She mentioned that Gabby had a history with Kian and had been arrested in the past for similar behavior. None of this was confirmed by police, but it was enough to keep the internet buzzing. Meanwhile, investigators were analyzing surveillance footage from multiple areas. In one video near the wooded area where Kata's body was found, police noted what looked like two figures, not one. One matched Kian's build, but the other appeared smaller, possibly female. The footage wasn't clear enough to identify the second person, but it added a new dimension to the case. Could it be Gabby? Or was someone else involved? Someone the public didn't even know about yet? Authorities stayed quiet, refusing to name any new suspects. They knew the case was fragile. Any misstep could give the defense an opening. But for Cotta's family, silence wasn't enough. They wanted the truth, and they wanted it now. Vigils were held across the city. People lit candles, carried photos, and held signs demanding justice. "Say her name," they chanted. Justice for Cotta Scott. The case became a rallying cry not only for Cotta, but for countless other young women who had gone missing under similar circumstances. Advocates pointed out how cases involving Black women often didn't get the same urgency or attention as others. Cotta's story, they said, was a reminder of how easily these tragedies could be overlooked until it was too late. Journalists picked up the story, transforming it into a nationwide conversation. True crime podcasts dissected every detail. YouTube creators posted hour-long breakdowns. And yet, at the center of it all, one painful fact remained. A young woman's life had been taken, and those responsible were still not fully held accountable. Still, something about the way the investigation was unfolding felt off. The delays, the missing charges, the quiet way the police moved, it all pointed to something deeper happening behind closed doors. When a reporter pressed a police spokesperson about the lack of murder charges against Kian, the reply was cautious but telling. "We are following every lead." Sometimes, cases like this require patience. The goal is not to rush to judgment, but to make sure every person involved is held responsible. It was the first time the department had publicly hinted that more than one person might face charges. And suddenly, all eyes turned back to Gabby. Weeks passed, yet the city still pulsed with questions. Candlelight vigils continued on street corners. News vans lined the sidewalks outside police headquarters. Everyone was waiting for the next update, some proof that justice was moving forward. Behind closed doors, detectives were re-examining every digital trace, every phone ping, and every message sent the night Cotta vanished. They knew Kian King wasn't acting alone. The evidence hinted at coordination. But proving it required patience and precision. The first major shift came from a set of phone records. Investigators discovered that Kian and Gabby had exchanged a dozen calls in the 48 hours leading up to Cotta's disappearance. Many of those calls happened late at night, after Cotta's shift at the nursing home. One message from Gabby read, "She leaving early today. You already know what to do." It wasn't direct proof of guilt, but the wording was enough to make the detectives pause. The second break came from security footage recovered from a nearby gas station. The video showed Kian's car driving toward the abandoned school minutes after Cotta clocked out. In the passenger seat sat a figure wearing a hoodie. The face wasn't visible, but the outline, hair length, and body shape looked unmistakably female. By now, online communities had turned into full-blown investigators. Reddit threads mapped out timelines. TikTok creators compared video stills. YouTubers analyzed every detail, like it was a live trial. Some posts accused Gabby outright, while others suggested she was being manipulated by Kian. The line between speculation and evidence blurred overnight. Meanwhile, Cotta's family was growing impatient. Her mother, exhausted and angry, stood before reporters outside City Hall and said softly, "They keep telling us to wait, but my baby's gone. How long do we have to wait for them to arrest everyone who did this?" Her words echoed across television screens and social media feeds, becoming a rallying cry. The public pressure worked. A few days later, detectives quietly brought Gabby in for questioning. She didn't come in handcuffed. It was a conversation, not an arrest, at least not yet. According to those close to the investigation, Gabby's demeanor shifted several times during that interview. Calm at first, then defensive, then suddenly emotional when they confronted her with the phone data. She admitted that Kian had called her on the night Cotta disappeared, but she insisted she didn't know what he was planning. "He just told me he needed help picking something up," she said. When asked what something meant, Gabby looked down and whispered, "I didn't ask." That moment changed everything. Detectives knew they were close. Forensic teams went back to the wooded area behind the school and conducted another sweep. This time, they discovered fragments of burned fabric, a piece of clothing that matched what Kata had been wearing the night she vanished. Traces of accelerant were found nearby, tying back to Kian's existing arson charges. It was becoming clear that the case against him wasn't just about kidnapping anymore. It was about covering up something far worse. The turning point came when a new witness stepped forward, a neighbor from Kian's block. He told investigators he'd seen Gabby at Kian's house the day after Kata disappeared. She was carrying a duffel bag and looked shaken. The witness said he didn't think much of it at the time, but after seeing the news, he realized the timing was chilling. Police quietly re-interviewed Gabby the next morning. This time, her story wavered. She admitted she had gone to Kian's house but said she was returning his stuff. When detectives pressed for details, she broke down and said, "I just wanted it all to stop." Within hours, word leaked that Gabby had become a person of interest. Reporters swarmed outside her apartment. Cameras flashed as she left the building with her lawyer, refusing to answer questions. The media frenzy intensified. Morning shows debated whether Gabby was a victim of manipulation or an accomplice in a calculated act of revenge. Commentators on social media divided into two camps, one demanding her arrest, the other insisting she was being scapegoated. Meanwhile, Kian sat in custody, saying little. His lawyer released a short statement claiming his client had nothing to do with any homicide. But even his silence seemed strategic, like he was waiting for someone else to take the fall. For Kata's loved ones, the speculation was unbearable. They wanted truth, not theories. They wanted charges, not whispers. Then, almost out of nowhere, investigators announced that they had received new evidence, an audio message recovered from Kian's phone. In it, a female voice could be heard saying, "You sure she won't scream?" The voice was faint, distorted, but experts believed it was Gabby's. The district attorney called it the most significant piece of evidence so far. It confirmed that another person was present the night Kata disappeared. With that revelation, the story reached a fever pitch. News channels played the audio on repeat. Talk shows debated the psychology behind the crime. Activists called for systemic reform, arguing that if the earlier kidnapping case against Kian had been handled properly, Kata might still be alive. By late evening, detectives executed a search warrant on Gabby's residence. They collected clothing, phones, and documents. And though no official charges were filed that night, insiders knew it was only a matter of time. For the first time, the tide of the investigation had shifted. What began as a case of one man's violence had evolved into something larger, a story about loyalty, fear, and the terrible choices people make when they think no one is watching. And as Philadelphia braced for the next headline, one haunting question lingered in every conversation, every broadcast, every quiet moment. How far would someone go for love, for revenge, or for silence?